project which we want to be involved in. All right, so I'm very glad today to be able to introduce to you the Long family. This isn't all of them, but all the Longs, if you'll stand, and also Marissa and Anna Rose, okay? So Jeff, Colleen, Janelle, Anna Rose, Marissa, and Josie from the Philippines. Let's give them a hand. Josie's going to come and give a bit of her testimony, then introduce some of the girls that have been involved in the ministry that she is in. And remarkable how God uses. Some people say, well, I'm too young, you know, I don't have the training that I need to be used by God. I just want to tell you folks, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so, Josie, you please come. I'm setting the tone.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Josie, and I'm the longest of 5 Long children. I'm 27 years old. We moved to the Philippines in '91. I was 4 at the time. And, well, I'll give you a little background. The home that we moved into is the home that God 20-some years later gave the girls and I to live in permanently, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I graduated from Faith Academy in 2006 and headed off to the U.S. and thought I was starting my adventure somewhere else in a different country, and ended up being a nanny for the first year for a couple professional baseball players. That was an awesome, exciting year, and experienced things I'll probably never experience again. And then headed into cosmetology school and wasn't really sure what I was supposed to do with that. Had no idea that God was going to lead me back to the Philippines with that. But it took me almost a year and a half to finish school. And that year and a half was probably the hardest year and a half of my life. I made all the wrong decisions, walked into it really pridefully, thinking, okay, I have this, I'm a missionary kid, I have this great foundation in Jesus, and you know, I'm going to make all the wrong friends and lead them to Jesus, and instead I didn't. I just walked all the wrong ways and on all the wrong paths there for a while. And it's definitely, the experiences I went through definitely have helped me understand my girls to a different level, which is great. And so near the end of that time of school, my parents started calling me and saying, okay, Josie, what's next? Where are we going? And I said, anything to come home. And at that point, we were really diving into the community more. And we have people that show up to our gates almost on a daily basis saying, hey, do you have a job opportunity for us? They're willing to work for their money, but there's just not enough opportunities out there. And so they're constantly asking and looking for ways that they can provide for their family. And so my parents encouraged me, Josie, can you come back and let's train some other women in this community how to be cosmetologists as well? I said, great, sounds good. I get to come home. Wonderful. So I moved back home in January of 2009. And in one way or another, looked my parents in the eye and said, Mom, Dad, I'm here for 1 year. I don't know where I'm going next, but I'm not here to serve. I'm not here to do a bunch of ministry forever. And that was almost 6 years ago. So God had different plans, of course. And so during that first year, somehow God was able to use me to train 6 women out of that community how to be cosmetologists. And today they're able to run a salon and spa and provide for their families and their grandkids and everything. It's been really incredible to watch them flourish and just walk with confidence, knowing that they're doing what God's created them to be able to do. So that was that first year, and in that first year I had these 9 beautiful little girls. Anna Rose was one of them. And they would get so excited as I showed up for training, and in my selfish ways, I would get out of the car and say, no, you know, I'm clean, I'm showered, please don't touch me, I'm headed to training, I've got all this work to do. Very selfish. I hate thinking of the heart that I had at that point. But these 9 girls would be so excited to greet me almost every morning. Several weren't in school at that time, and etc. And so near the end of that year and near the end of that training time, I showed up for training one day, and these 9 girls were headed away from the street, and so I, looked out, waved at them, and there was one that was lagging quite far behind. And so as I drew closer to her and just wanted to find out why she was kind of hobbling on one foot, I noticed that her leg was extremely swollen and this infection was crawling up her leg. And so, shocked, I put her on my back, and the rest of the 8 followed me into our guest house ministry center, and put her down and said, "How did this happen?" And she showed me on the bottom of her foot was this inch cut, and this inch cut had caused this infection to crawl up her whole body, and she was ready to lose her leg. And so that inch cut really tore my heart into pieces. And I started remembering all those things that my parents were telling me, just paint nails, just hang out with them for 10 minutes, teach them a memory verse, all of those simple things that could have really changed their life during that year. And excuse me. Anyways, yeah, it just, that was my first breaking point, was realizing that it was very simple things that God was asking me to do in these girls' lives, and I finally was getting it. And so in 2010, we started a small Bible study, and that group of 9 girls grew to over 50 by the end of that year. And I started to learn that education was a huge key. If I could get these girls into good schools, then they're busy for 8 or 9 hours, and the abuse and other things that are going on in their lives, they're taken away from that for a little bit. And so I just started focusing on and trying to make them busy and teach them about Jesus and how to walk confidently and boldly in Him, and was doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing. And in January of 2009, I was sitting with a group of about 13 girls, and a dear missionary friend of my father's, Carl Ralston, who starts homes throughout Southeast Asia. He was watching me do this Bible study with this group, and at the end pulled me aside and said, we were sitting talking for a little bit, and he was asking about my girls and where they were coming from. And at the end of about 5 minutes, he says, "Josie, I'm sorry, we've got to start a home for these girls." And I, shocked, knew that I had heard words of advice and truth like that before, and it scared me to death. And I said, "Oh, Uncle Carl, no thank you. I'm 23 years old. That's not where I'm going." And so the next 2 or 3 months were another wrestle. Just like in 2009, I was wrestling with God, saying, "No, don't use me. I'm not adequate. I'm not ready for this." And so much fear quickly turned into this desire and deeper love for these girls. And so was headed off to do whatever it took to get these girls into safer environments. So as I kind of feel like as soon as I said, "Okay, God, yep, I hear you, I'm ready, I'm excited for this," He sat me in this chair for about 2 months, and I just watched His hands do miracles in front of me. I watched abusers sign over their girls and say, "Okay, yeah, we're going to let them stay in this home," which is just unheard of. He showed me where we were going to live. The 10 or 12 girls that I thought He was going to give me when the home started, it was actually a group of 24 girls to start the family. And so He gave us a home where we were going to be able to rent and stay in until we grew out of it. And so today, 3.5 years into it, I still wake up a lot of times and I feel like, okay, I have no idea what to expect for today. I don't know who's going to get sick or who I'm going to have to rush off to the dentist. But it's fun. It's fun to be a mom, big sister to 35 girls, is what our group and family is today. And about 2 years ago, in 2012, I found out that this home, like I mentioned, was sitting empty across the street from where we lived our first year in the Philippines, our neighbor home. Anyways, so this home was sitting empty, and it's beautiful. It's up on this little hill, very quiet and very safe, an amazing sanctuary. And so I found out that it was sitting empty, and so I started going up there every week to 10 days And for 9 months, I would do this. I would turn off my cell phone for 30 minutes and just say, okay, God, someday you're going to give us a permanent home. I would love it to be this one. I don't know if I'm asking for too much, but this is, I would love to see this. And so 9 months into that, I'm walking a group of about 5 adults through the home, and we're praying over it, and they're daydreaming with me. At the end of that tour, a couple pulled me aside and said, we've got half of it. Let's see how God provides the other half. So 3 months later, my 29 girls that I had at the time and we moved into that home. And less than a year later, God gave us the full amount to be able to live in that permanently. So that's where we're at today. Like I said, I have 35, and you're going to meet 2 of my very oldest. So why don't you girls come on up here?
Hi, good morning. I'm Anna Rose. I'm 18 years old and I'm in college. I'm studying in Messiah College. It's intentionally Christian college. So all the students, staff, teachers, faculty are all Christian. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit of my testimony. I grew up in a non-Christian family, so I was not surrounded by God and church from the beginning. But I'm a girl who's very active in Bible study and just follow through the motion of doing Christian things that I thought you were supposed to do. I didn't know him, I just knew about him. Back then, when I was 15 years old, I found myself searching for an answer to the question, why I can't find His love or God's love, when suddenly things happen. I was sick for 1 week and had to stay in the hospital for 5 days because I had dengue fever for a critical stage. I saw my family was sad and worried because of my condition. In the hospital, I had a friend. She also had a dengue fever of stage 1. We played games, took pictures, and enjoyed talking to each other. In my 4 days in the hospital, she passed away. I kept on thinking that I will be the next and I will die soon. At my lowest point, when I was alone and afraid, I didn't want to sleep because I was scared to die. When my doctor approached and asked me, Anna Rose, why are you not yet sleeping? You have to rest because this is your last day here and you're going back to your family or to your home. God did a miracle in my life. I feel so happy and blessed, and I cried out to God. He gave me another life to live with Him. In that moment, I found His love, a perfect love that I'm longing for. God also used Ate Josie, the Jazz Home, and the family long to help me understand everything about Him. So that day, I asked God to forgive all my sins through Jesus and put my trust in Jesus alone. Since knowing Him, God showed me that being a Christian isn't about just doing good work. He made it clear that I do not have to earn my salvation and His love. Today, my life as a Christian is full of joy, peace, and purpose. I know that God loves me and has forgiven me. Best of all, I know that I have eternal life with God. Apart from going to school, I'm so thankful to God because God used Ate Josie, the Jazz Home where we live, and the family long for me to be involved in the ministry because I love to serve God's people. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, I am Maria Marisa San Juan, 19 years old. I'm in Bible Seminary, Bible School. I want to share my story of forgiveness. When I was 7 years old, I experienced a lot of pain in my life. And one painful thing I'll never forget is the pain my father put me through. when I became someone I hated. My father was always hurting me. He would take a hammer and pound my feet with it. He would use pliers, long-nose pliers, and other tools you would use for building to hurt me. I would go to school with countless bruises and wounds. Although he didn't just physically hurt me, but mentally and emotionally also. He never encouraged me. He always putting me down. He didn't treat me like I was his daughter. When my father would get drunk, he would hurt both my family and I for no reason. He treated us like animals. We would go without eating food a lot, where we'd eat only once a day. Sometimes we wouldn't eat for a whole week. There were many times he almost killed my mother, and she'd have to be sent to the hospital because of how severely he'd beat her. My mom was the opposite of my father and was a really good mother to me and my siblings. She was the one who always encouraged me. My mom was always telling me that no matter what happens, I still needed to love my father, but to pray to God that God will change his attitude. But as a young girl, I didn't understand why he would always hurt us. So I would tell myself he is not my father. When I was 10 years old, I became someone I hated even more. I would fight kids at school all the time, and I was the one who would ask kids to battle me one-on-one. I almost killed someone from fighting. I was imagining that they were my father, and I was remembering every horrible thing he had ever done to me and my family. This was my life, and I had lost all hope. I figured my life was meaningless to the point where I tried to commit suicide. But by God's grace, I chose to live because that's what God wants. God used different ways to show me hope in my life. When I was 12 years old, my elementary teacher let me live with her. She helped me to continue school because I was about to drop out. I became a working student at the school's canteen. A year passed, and my mother came to get me. She told me there was someone who was going to take me and my 3 siblings in and take care of us. And this was the jazz home. My character changed, and the bitterness in my heart was starting to go away little by little. I found a new hope through the jazz home, a hope to continue my dreams and to fight through the trials I will face in the future. My heart grew closer to God, and I learned a lot of things from Him, especially how to forgive. It wasn't easy in the beginning, and maybe that's because of all the pain I've gone through, but God never failed me. As my relationship grew, He taught me how to wholeheartedly forgive and completely surrender to Him. I thank God for the changes He helped me make in my life. Because of Him, I was able to forgive my father wholeheartedly, and I was able to forgive myself. And even though I can feel the love of my dad for me, I know that my Father in heaven truly loves me. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, rolling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." Again, I am Marisa San Juan, and I'm 19 years old. To God be the glory.
Okay, so those are 2 of my oldest, and God kind of closed our doors this year of 2014. We are hoping for a budget that will be able to provide for more girls in the future. The home that He gave us has the potential of holding up to 80 girls really comfortably. So right now we're a family of 35, but someday in the future we could be a lot bigger than that probably. We have a little girl named Rona Joyce who's entered our ministry family, and she's been going to our school for 5 years now, since she was 7. She's 12 at the moment, and her father started to rape her continuously this year, and she ended up pregnant, and she's 4 months along now. She's very, very small, and should not be going through this right now. But we're hopeful that she will make it, and then she'll hopefully join our family at the beginning of this next year, 2015. So you can be praying for her, Rona Joyce. You can also be praying for my girls just in their journey as they come to know Christ as their Savior and understand how much He loves them unconditionally. And then I have probably a handful that don't actually know Jesus yet, and so you can pray for them as well. In my purse, I have little wallet-sized pictures of each of them with their name on the back. So if any of you guys are interested in being prayer partners for one of my girls, please come up to me, and I have those pictures I can give you. You can put on your fridge or in your wallet and just remember them in your prayers each day. So thank you for having us.
Oh, wow. I asked Dave last night, I said, I feel like after that I should just come up and let's pray and go home. And that lump that gets in your throat and then you try to talk. Are any of you experiencing that lump right now? I got that lump. And I'm sure it's God-given so that you guys will get home before the pot roast burns. But we're just really blessed to be here in Taiwan and Taipei. We've had friends down at Taichung. I always say Chiang Mai because I get this Thailand and Taiwan thing, but Taichung. We've had friends down there for lots of years, and now our friendships are spreading to Taipei, and it's great to be here to share with you this morning. And we should have changed that. I should have gone first and then let them finish, and then we could all go home and cry together. But I'm going to try to persevere and see if we can encourage each other. Blessings through obedience. Josie's life, the ebb and flow of life. All of us go through experiences. Sometimes our chapters in life are written closer to God. Sometimes they're written a little bit farther away. But as we learn in our journey, the more we're obedient, the more blessings will flow, the more God can use you. And today in Genesis chapter 22, I think they'll have it on the screen here in a little bit, but in Genesis chapter 22, we're going to just reflect on how Abraham's obedience led to amazing, by the end of the chapter, amazing blessings. Let's read that. You can follow along on the big screen. Genesis chapter 22, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here am I. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son, Isaac. Remember how long he waited for Isaac? Him and Sarah waited a long time. He said, Take thy son, thy only son, get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will show you. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of the young men with him and Isaac his son and the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went to the place which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far away. And Abraham said unto his young men, Stay here with the donkey, and I will go yonder with the lad and worship, and I will come to you again. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and took the fire in his hand and the knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spoke unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to a place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called upon him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. He said, Lay not thy hand upon thy lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by the horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offering him up for the burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, the mount the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called upon Abraham out of heaven a second time and said, by myself I have sworn, saith the Lord, because you have done this thing, and you've not withheld your son, thy only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And the seed shall all nations of the earth, including Taiwan, be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned with the young men, and they rose up and went together, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. You know, when you look at verse 1, God called Abraham. And just like Josie was sharing, God called Josie little by little as she was training these cosmetology women in the community to have a sustainable income all these years. God asked Josie in the midst of that, help these girls along the way. And as Abraham answered God's call in verse 1, Josie answered that call. And years later, the blessings that flow out of that obedience, from Abraham's standpoint, Josie's standpoint, your standpoint in your life, as you go through your life and see God ask you to do things and you answer that call. Abraham answered the call. In verse 2, it talks about God's request, what he wanted him to do. In verse 3, it talks about about Abraham's obedience. He rose up early in the morning. He took the donkey and the other people, and he left with his son. And then verse 5, I think it's significant. Abraham had the confidence. Wait here, and the boy and I will worship and come again. Wait here. God will provide. In the midst of everything, in the midst of that, what could have been a chaotic and confusing moment, lacking clarity of what God is really going to accomplish through this situation, Abraham went ahead with confidence. In verse 8, Abraham answering Isaac, God will provide for himself the offering. In verse 10, again, it talks about Abraham's obedience. He stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And then down in verse 14, it talks about Abraham called that place the Lord will provide, Mount Moriah. We have a Mount Moriah in the Philippines, down in Mindanao on one of our islands, where a sports camp, a children's home has been built, and God is doing amazing things across the islands. Mindanao, Tacloban, and in Manila. It's an incredible journey. Verse 17, it talks about God's blesses obedience, the multiplication of your offspring as the stars in the sky, the grains of the sand. Nations will be blessed because of this obedience. You have no idea in your lifetime, your willingness to share Christ, your willingness to be a loving light in someone's life, what that's going to do. The results of what that will happen generations to come, because you cared enough to have loving, intentional acts of kindness, sharing your faith with others. We have no idea. Sometimes on this side of heaven, we'll have no idea the ripple effect that could have in someone's life who ends up sharing with someone, who ends up sharing with someone, and the disciples that grow out of that one moment in time that you chose to be obedient to God's calling in your life. Who do you have in your life today that needs to know about the greatest gift? We're celebrating Christmas. We're going to have the live Christmas, the greatest gift ever given to mankind. Who is there in your life today? Who is there that you could step out of your comfort zone and find that obedience that God wants you to have and to share with others? In the Philippines, when we think about our life there the last 23 years, many people have asked, why the Philippines? Why go and spend your time in a country that has lots of graft and corruption, and it has 80% poverty? It pays $2 a day for people that work hard, 8, 10, 12-hour shifts. Why invest in that country? Why go there where there's so many issues? Why go there where the poor exploit the poor, the rich exploit the poor? Why work with that people group? And I can only answer, over the last 23 years, we have seen Filipinos be world changers. We have seen them go from the Philippines. There's over 100 million Filipinos. Here in Taiwan, I think you have 22, 23 million. We have 4 times the population in our country. We have seen more than half of the population of Taiwan leave the Philippines and go and serve mankind around the world. Many Filipinos are caring, compassionate people. I don't know that you can go into too many hospitals around the world and not find doctors and nurses and caregivers helping make life easier for other people groups around the world. They're excited to go. They want to go, and then they believe in sending money back. They will help their families. They're very compassionate. They're world changers. When people come to the Philippines and serve alongside of us, we often say, your world is about ready to change. You will leave this country of the Philippines a different person. So not only are Filipinos world changers in our minds and in our hearts, but when you come and serve with us, when you come and serve with the Beavers in Boracay, when you come and serve in Mindanao, or in a situation in your life where you can get out of the normalcy and be shocked, when you experience that, you'll understand what I mean. Your world will never be the same. And you will see life in a different outlet. And so we've invested in 23 years in people, in these children's lives and other people's lives, so that they could have a chance to get off ground zero, so they could have a chance to move up the food chain, so they could have a chance to know that when they go to sleep at night, they're going to sleep safely, so that when they wake up in the morning, they know they're going to be fed, so that when they wake up in the morning, they know they can go to school. And as God has blessed us over the last several years, initially teaching and discipling missionary kids at Faith Academy from 1991 till 2008, but along the way, we're sitting in a McDonald's in May of 2003. As you can tell, I frequent McDonald's a lot more. You people are a lot more fit here. It's given me a nice challenge for the new year. But I'm still a month away from that New Year's resolution, so I'm going to enjoy a few more meals today in case anybody wants to take me out. It's fine. But I'm sitting in a McDonald's eating my Curzon Whey, and along came a spider named Janelle. She was my middle child. She had grown up in the Philippines from age 1, and now we fast forward to May of 2003. She's almost 13 years old, and she had been a child as she grew up. When the little kids knock on the door of the window when you're going through traffic, they come and they want food, they want money. As you're sitting at McDonald's and there's a window there, they want to come up and they want food. And so Janelle had always been that child in our life. We had 3 children when we arrived in the Philippines. We had Kyle, born in the Philippines, or made in the Philippines, as they say, in 1992. Jackie was made in the Philippines in 1995. But in 2003, that's Janelle there in the black. My wife is also there in black. I have to always confirm that she is my wife, not my daughter. So now that I'm looking at this picture, I have to do that again. She's so young. I take such good care of you, honey. All of these people out here want to know, what happened to me, though? Why aren't you taking care of me? Why do I look so old? So we'll deal with that later. Right now, we're going to stick to the script. But Janelle was 12 years old. She went outside and fed those kids. And then she came back in and she looked at her dad. Look at me. She looked at her dad and she says, "Dad, I don't understand. Why can't we do more?" Look at me. You made me look at you. She said, "Dad, I don't understand. Why can't we do more for those kids?" And I didn't have an answer. I had Big Mac going down my thing. I wasn't done with my fries. I like to eat them while they're hot. I didn't have the answer. My Coke was cold. I wanted to drink it. So we started praying in June of 2003, what can we do to do more to help these kids? We went home on a furlough. It was our last furlough 10 years ago. We arrived back in July of 2004 with 2 families, one from Germany, one from Colorado, that wanted to help us answer the question, why can't we do more? And I can just honestly say, over the last 10 years, God has asked us that question on a daily basis. What can we do more? How can we help Rona? our lives have been changed in the last 3 weeks, just realizing, because the pillars of what we do, we want to work through the local church. We want to be the conduit. We want to help local people help their people. We want to equip the local church. We want to give them the credit and God the glory and remain the wind in the sails and not be seen but always be felt. We want to do that. We want to assist the poor and care for the sick and educate the next generation. And when you put all those things together, you think you're protecting these kids. You don't realize that in the midst of all that darkness, that a 7-year-old little girl who's been with you for 5 years now, she's 12, she's in 7th grade, she's thriving, you don't realize that her daddy is raping her every day from May till November. You don't realize that. And then when you find something like that out, you want to do something. And we were powerless. They were going to take that little girl from us. They were going to put her in a government institution, and she was going to live there from age 12 to 18. And, I couldn't do that. I didn't know what the solution was, but when I sat there and talked to that old lady who was about ready to make this amazing decision in this little girl's life, I just begged her, what can we do? And finally the solution came, you can become licensed emergency foster care. And I remember, my dad died when I was 8 years old, but I remember my mom, who was taking care of 6 of us long kids, ages 2 to 11, at age 42, as a widow. I remember her doing emergency foster care. I remember her taking care of so many kids in addition to our kids. And she went back and got her teaching degree and finished school. And all those things that happened growing up came flooding back to me. We could take care of emergency foster care kids in addition to the children's homes, in addition to the school. How can we help these kids even more not end up in this situation? So God granted us favor, and one of our missionaries, and Colleen and I, just started busting our tails to get everything accomplished, to develop a profile so that we could become licensed emergency foster care people, so that Rona could stay with us. And God allowed that to happen, and we're so grateful that someday Rona could be in the loving arms with Josie and the angels, that today, that as that child grows inside of her, I don't know, when Josie mentions pray for Rona, we actually mean it. We're just not throwing it out there. We're actually going to hold you accountable. We're going to ask you to pray for Rona that God could spare her life. We've had too many little teenage girls die in our arms giving birth. And Rona, we'd like to see Rona live. And we'd like for you guys to be on that journey with us to make sure she can live and thrive. Through feedings, going out with, a lot of times people talk about random acts of kindness. I think we should be intentional. I think you should be intentional about poinsettias. You should be intentional about live Christmas. You should be intentional about your lives and the opportunities that God puts before you each and every day. As you learn these last 4 weeks from these amazing missionaries that came here and spoke to you, God in these last 4 weeks has got to be working in your heart. What is it that you're going to be obedient to? How is God going to use you in the life of that neighbor, in the life of that son or daughter, in the life of that parent, in the life of that relative or friend? How is God going to use you? From feedings into communities, to seeing kids rescued out of those feedings from impoverished areas, to wanting to educate kids, 12, 15 kids at a time in our school, to building additional dental clinics, which would allow more pregnancy moms to come into our pregnancy clinic, to seeing an Adonai home started a couple years ago where today, instead of abortion and abandonment of children, we have seen 24 children in the last 18 months born in our Adonai home, and half of those kids have ended up in our children's home, and more than half of them have ended up being adopted into forever homes. And it's just an incredible journey. And just as God talked to Abraham, that in blessing you I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thy seed, we had no idea 10 years ago when we said, Janelle, why can't we do more? If we'd have known back then what we know now, I'd have still been at Faith Academy. I could have never have imagined all this heartache and pain. Never could I have imagined letting my daughter go through these situations with these kids. But God can. And God can stretch the imagination, and God can allow an incredible journey. And God can allow unbelievable blessings to flow when you're obedient to Him. At the end of the day, many of you came down, some of you came down to Tacloban to help us. When you think about the ministry center down there, if you could return today and see how those people are standing up Most of them, some of them would not have been alive had it not been for dear hearts like you and others that have come to help rebuild Tacloban, Samar, Leyte, and the Visayas. We have a beautiful guest house down there that's been restored, and along the way building dozens of homes, feeding in biblical proportions thousands of meals a day. We continue that. We continue to try to make sure kids have a light in the darkness. So either in Tacloban, if you want to return there, in Manila, if you want to come and help us there. We're not exactly storm chasers. Like back in Kansas, where I'm from, these crazy people chase these tornadoes around and want to get near them. We don't exactly do that, but we are intentional that when storms hit, you can pray for the Philippines, because the chaos, the darkness that envelops after storms, it takes a tremendous toll on women and children. There are 5 leading countries in the world for the sex trade and exploitation of women and children. And the Philippines, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and India lead that list. And so you can pray for us, because many times when those storms hit our countries and others like it, the chaos that reigns, the looting, the raping, the pillaging, the taking of children on boats to other cities and countries takes a tremendous toll on our people. And so as we see storms coming, we have first responding teams. We get down there, we start generators, we start candles, and we literally bring light into the darkness so that those kids can have a safe place. And that's what's happened in Tacloban. Is we'll send a video here in the next couple weeks to let you see the restoration there and what's happening and how we continue to need your help there throughout 2015. But we are more than storm chasing. We're people chasing. We want to intentionally look for people in harm's way and try to help and allow them to have a chance to live. We want to be the light in the darkness. We want to plant those churches, equip those churches. We want to assist the poor and care for the sick and help educate kids so they can have an opportunity to move up the food chain and to know God as their purpose in life and to know Jesus as their personal Savior and what He did on the cross. In the end, empowering Filipinos, giving them the credit and God the glory. Today, God has allowed us over the past 10 years to feed and water people in biblical proportions. But I can honestly say that each cup of water, each bowl of soup, each bed that's built so that kids can sleep in a safe place, each classroom that's built so that we can educate 12 to 15 kids at a time, each Sunday school lesson taught, every evangelical basketball game that's played to share the gospel, all those things have been intentional acts of loving kindness that we can use your help with. You can be involved in our lives and other lives to see kids and people won to Christ, teaching and discipling them. Opportunities abound for obedience in the Philippines and Taiwan. Our daughter Janelle, as Dave mentioned, a lot of our kids are still in the Philippines helping us. And somehow this special friend named Elliot got involved. You know, he was a friend of my son Kirk. There's this Morrison Academy here. There's this Faith Academy in the Philippines. And in 2007, Elliot and Kirk played against each other in this Far East Championship game, and they became friends. And Elliot went to Biola in the States. Kirk stayed and played in the Philippines. They got in the D-League together in the Philippines. And now Elliot's playing professionally here, and Kirk's playing professionally there. So they were good friends all these times. And a year ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, Elliot was over, sitting on the sofa he always sat on, eating with us, enjoying Kirk's conversation. Janelle was sitting on the other sofa. She was home from college. And then somehow, he snuck the hockey puck by me, and he switched sofas right in the middle of that somehow. And he started sitting by and talking to Janelle 2 years ago, and now he's Janelle's special friend instead of Kirk's. And I'm just giving this as a public service announcement. All of you that are raising daughters, guard your daughter's sofa. Make sure you're sitting there with her. So if this innocent, young-looking, nice guy from Taiwan switches sofas on you, you'll be there too, all right? Somehow I lost Janelle to Elliot in Taiwan, and I want you to know that until this weekend, I had a lot, me and God were talking about that a lot. And then I came here on Wednesday. I saw my 24-year-old little girl loving the Taiwanese people like she used to love the Filipino people. And I saw her intentionally sharing her faith and making friends on the basketball court. Down at the 101 on Wednesday night, girls basketball only. And I see her going to the orphanages. I see her taking angels to the orphanages. And she loves Taiwan. And now I love Taiwan. And I'm dealing with Elliot. But we're grateful for kids that love Jesus. And Janelle's being obedient to God. And that's what we raise our kids to do. Sorry, I'm a crybaby. What else is God asking you to do? Who is he asking you to reach and teach? And in this season, wouldn't it be so cool a month from now that the reason for the season that God brought people into your life and you were able to bring them to church and they were able to find out the greatest gift ever given? Jesus said in Mark 10:45, "For even I, the Son of Man, came here not to be served, but to serve others, and to give my life as a ransom for many." We should be doing the same. David.
So the question was asked to us, what should we be doing? And I think it starts from the youngest age. Those of you who, teenagers, still in high school, you may think that the most important in life is to get your college and university degree. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just simply saying that that's not the ultimate. There's the opportunity to serve God in all that we do and all that we say. And I appreciate the testimony of the Long family who went to the Philippines, planted roots, stayed there, and all they did day by day was just simply obey what God said. And I will warn you, as a father who also has daughters, when those daughters come up to their dads and say, "Dad, what should we do about this?" It does hit home. And also when their special friends come and say, "Dad, can I have her hand in marriage?" That also hits home. So I get it. But I just want to say to our young people that you should begin now not to ask which school I should go to. You should begin now to ask God, "God, what do you want me to do for you?" And he will lead you step by step where he wants you to go. I'd say to moms and dads, too, as you pray for your children, you shouldn't be praying that God should give them a good job and a happy life. I shouldn't say that. You should be praying, though, that God would use your children to bring glory and honor to his name. Sometimes it's difficult, and you just have no idea how God would love to use your children. But moms and dads, you should be asking yourself, what does God want me to do? I think oftentimes of Henry and Eve. Henry was very successful in his business career. He was an engineer. He left his business career, and he and his wife went to Germany as missionaries, and now they're pastoring to the Chinese people in Germany. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? And yet God has these plans for us. And who would have thought that having brought a guy from Kansas all the way to, Kansas. What happens in Kansas? And brought them to the Philippines and planted them there. And now God has used not only Jeff and Colleen, but using his children and Josie to start this girls' home. 23 years old, come on. And she's how, can I ask? She's 27 now. Taking care of 30-some girls, has the possibility of 80 girls before 30. Unless she marries a rich husband, she'll never be very rich. But she'll be richer in ways that we could never imagine because of an investment in lives. And this is what I've been trying to say to you all month long. It's the investment that we put into people's lives, not only here in our own, but what we can give to others, like to the Long family, like to Dustin in Nepal, like to Mike Robinette in India, the investment that we put into their lives, folks, it affects other people who are desperately in need of help that we may not be able to do ourselves. It's an investment in eternity. And why wouldn't you want to invest like that in eternity? Let's bow our heads, please, for prayer. Father, you made an incredible investment in us when you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, who lived in this life as a very poor man. In fact, didn't even have a place to put your head to rest, never owned a home. You were reviled, you were hated, you were crucified, and yet you conquered death, conquered sin, rose again, that we might have life and to live it fully and to live it abundantly. God, lift up our eyes beyond this world. Lift up our eyes to see people whom we can invest in. Thank you, Lord, for bringing Anna Rose and Marissa to share their story, to share how, because a young lady was simply obedient to you, it's changed their life and the life of many girls. We do want to pray for Runa Joy. What's it like to be a 12-year-old girl and to have your father abuse you like that? God, how can we begin to understand? And yet, there's no more love that can be given to her than the love of God. Thank you, Lord, for a family and a group of people who are saying we're looking out for her and we're going to take care of her. And I pray, Lord, that though our heart has been touched all month long, that it won't be the end of the month, but it'll be the beginning of a journey that Grace Church takes on to support these people, to be involved, and to be doing what we can to change this world, to give the gospel of Jesus Christ to those who are in need. And so, Lord, as we continue now and go forward as Grace Church, use us, I pray, for your glory and for your honor, because it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We're going to receive an offering, and here's what I'd like